Hare Krishna, dear devotees and Pranam, Shri Prabhupada, Mangalachan, Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatade Shutarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Happy Pandava Nirjala Ekadasi to everybody. Okay, we'll continue with our prayers. Anybody would like to sing today? Verses 21 to 30 from Sri Gurumada.
I can sing, Prabhuji.
Shri Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes. Go ahead, Mataji.
Okay. सुखं शयानं निलये च विष्णुं देवर्षिमुख्या मुनय प्रपन्नाः तेनाच्युते तन्मयतां व्रजन्ति गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति विहाय निद्राम् अरुणोदये च विद्धाय कृत्यानि च विप्रमुख्याः वेदावसाने प्रपठन्ति नित्यं गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति वृन्दावने गोपगणश्च गोप्यो विलोक्य गोविन्दवियोगखिनं राधां जगुसाश्रुविलोचनाभ्यां गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति प्रभात् सञ्चरागतानुगावस्तद्रक्षणार्थं तनयं यशोदा प्राबोधयत्पाणितलेन मन्दं गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति प्रवालशोभा इव दीर्घकेशा वाताम्बुपर्णाशनपूतदेहा मूले तरूणां मुनयः पठन्ति गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति एवं ब्रुवाण विरहातुरभृशां व्रज श्रिय कृष्णविषेक्तमानसा विसृज्य रुरुदु स्म सुस्वरं गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति गोपी कदाचिन्मणिपिञ्जरस्थं सुखं वचो वाचयितुं प्रवृत्ता आनन्दकन्द व्रजचन्द्रकृष्ण गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति गोवत्सबालैः शिशुकाकपक्षं बध्नन्तम् अम्बोजदालायताक्षम् उवाच माता चिबुकं गृहीत्वा गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति प्रभातकाले वरवलवौघा गोरक्षणार्थं धृतवेत्रदण्डः आकारयामासुर अनन्तं दाद्यं गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति जलाशये काल्यमर्दनाय यदा कदम्बाद् अपतन्मुरारे गोपान् गणश्चक्रुषुरेत्य गोपा गोविन्ददामोदरमाधवेति 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 हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shri Mataji. Very nice. Yes. Anybody would like to read the translations?
If not, Prabhuji, I can read.
Sure, Mataji. Yeah, please.
Devarshi Narad and other munis are always surrendered to Lord Vishnu, who happily rests upon his couch. They always chant the names of Govinda, Damodar, and Madhava, and thus they attain spiritual forms similar to his. Rising at dawn, having performed their rituals and chanted Vedic hymns, the best of the learned Brahmanas always loudly chant Govinda, Damodar, Madhava. In Vrindavan, seeing Sri Radhika overwhelmed with separation from Govinda, groups of Gopas and Gopis sang with tears in their lotus eyes, Govinda, Damodar, O Madhava. The cows having already gone out to graze early in the morning, Mother Yashoda gently roused her sleeping son with the palm of her hand, softly saying, Govinda, Damodar, Madhava. With long matted hair, the color of coral, and bodies purified by eating only leaves, water, and air, the sages sit beneath the trees and chant Govinda, Damodar, and Madhava. After speaking these words, the ladies of Raj, who were so attached to Krishna, felt extremely agitated by their imminent separation from him. They forgot all worldly shame and loudly cried out, O Govinda, O Damodar, O Madhava. Sometimes a gopi is engaged in teaching a parrot within a jeweled cage to recite names like Anandakanda, source of bliss, Rajchandra, Krishna, Govinda, Damodar, and Madhava. The lotus eyed lord was tied the shikha of a cowherd boy to the tail of a calf when his mother caught him, lifted up his chin, and said, Govinda, Damodar, Madhava. In the early morning, a group of his favorite cowherd boys arrived, stick canes in hand, to take care of the cows. They addressed the unlimited, primeval personality of Godhead, Govinda, Damodar, Madhava. When Lord Murari jumped from the Kadamba branch into the water to chastise the Kalya serpent, all the gopis and cowherd boys went there and cried out, O Govinda, Damodar, Madhava. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Govinda Damodar Madhav Madhaveti. Okay, Shri Govinda Damodar Stotram ki jai. Shri Bill Mangal Thakur ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Mataji ki jai. Today you did extra service on Ekadashi. I see you were on the call before 5 o'clock today, maybe around 4:30. Who knows? I joined around 5, so but good to see you chanting the rounds, and also singing and translating everything. Very well.
As much as we
Okay.
can. Hare
Okay, so with that, we'll continue with our reading of Srila Prabhupada Leela continuing on chapter 21. Yeah, so yesterday we saw again how much Srila Prabhupada is coming down to all the levels of people, right? But his message was very pure. He was not diluting the message. He was not changing the philosophy just to please the Americans, as it was called. Um, and yeah, people are, of course, nobody in this world is perfect, right? So people are at whatever stage of life that they are, but the devotees of the Lord are so compassionate, uh, with full of mercy, full of karuna, that they go down, they stoop to that lower levels to uplift everybody, the fallen people. Even this prayer that has been composed by Shri Mangal Thakur, like we saw, he himself was kind of a patit, right? He was born in a Brahmin family, but how low he had fallen just for that, uh, just for sense gratification of sex pleasure. And but when that thunderbolt-like message that he heard from Chintamani, that if you're falling for this bag of bones and flesh, but it's the same level of attachment you had, or even iota of that attachment you had for the holy feet of the Lord, or listening to the glories of the Lord, then your life would be perfect. And he just takes that message and to his heart, and that awakens his dormant Krishna consciousness, and he starts his journey. So similarly, we see Prabhupada here is boldly preaching about this sense gratification of sex pleasure, against it, to all these people from the Lower East Side who are hippies, and that is kind of their daily pastime, so to say, or time pass, right? So, um, but yeah, Prabhupada's message is because he's a pure devotee, and it has the potency because of his practice of his sadhana, right? And that's why he's able to convince so many people. And yeah, it is also, we see, like we were saying, it's not like everybody will come in that theater, that the Hudson Hall that they did. There only 7, 8 people came, and in the park only few hundreds came. But then to the center again, people are coming for chanting or for kirtan. But as he starts lecturing, people wind off. So again, the message is not for everybody. Like I said, this requires spiritual credit, right? That is the only thing that goes with us. Like we say, when we die, the only thing that carries with us is our spiritual bank balance. So only those who have that spiritual bank balance can buy this chintamani, this priceless jewel, diamond. um, Not everybody has the qualification. Not everybody is fortunate, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. Only fortunate people, those, because this is being distributed freely. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to distribute this freely, but still nobody takes it easily. So only those who have that spiritual bank balance from their previous lives are able to take to this, or it is by the mercy of pure devotees. And they do the mercy, then people are able to understand the true value of this priceless jewel. So yeah, we saw yesterday Prabhupada went to the recital of this musician Burton Green, but all the musicians are also becoming devotee musicians. Um, and Prabhupada now is back, and let's read from here. The Gate Theatre. So the Gate Theatre was a small auditorium on 2nd Avenue, about 10 blocks north of the storefront, Satsvarupa. We rented the Gate Theatre for one night. It was a dark place painted all black. The theatre was almost empty. We had an easel on stage with a painting of the Panchatattva. Swamiji spoke, and his talk became very technical. Pointing and referring back to the painting, he described each member of the Panchatattva. He first explained that Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead appearing as a pure devotee. Lord Nityananda, to the right of Lord Chaitanya, is his first expansion, and to the right of Lord Nityananda is Advaita, who is incarnation of the Supreme Lord. To the left of Lord Chaitanya, he said, is Gadadhar, the internal energy, and Srivas is the perfect devotee. During the talk, I was thinking that this was maybe too elevated for the audience, but I was sitting close beside Swamiji, and like the other devotees, I was really enjoying being with him. After the gate engagement, Swamiji and his disciples agreed that it was a waste of time trying to rent theatres. It was better to go to Tompkins Square Park. That was the best place for attracting people, and it didn't cost anything. It was 11 p.m., and only one light was on in Swamiji's apartment, in the kitchenette. Swamiji was staying up teaching Kirtananda and Ramananda how to cook because the next day, Sunday, they would be holding a feast for the public. Kirtananda had suggested it be advertised as a love feast, and Swamiji had adopted the name, although some thought it sounded strange at first to hear him say love feast. The devotees had put up posters around the neighborhood and had made a sign for the window of the storefront. And Swamiji had said he would cook enough for at least 50 people. He said the love feast should become an important part of ISKCON. As he had explained many times, food offered to Krishna becomes spiritual, and whoever eats the prasadam receives great spiritual benefit. Prasadam meant mercy. His two helpers stood respectfully beside him, sometimes stepping back out of his way as he moved, and sometimes looking over his shoulder as he mixed spices, or set a pan over the flame, or called for another ingredient. He was stirring a big pot of sweet rice with a wooden spoon. It had to be stirred constantly and slowly adding milk. If the sweet rice burned, it would be ruined, he said, and he handed the spoon to Kirtananda. He next showed them how to make ghee by heating butter in a wok and separating the milk solids from the butter fat. And he simultaneously taught them how to make apple chutney. Prabhupada was silent as he cooked, but when Brahmananda asked him how he had learned so much about cooking, Prabhupada said that he had learned by watching his mother. He laughed and said it had not been like it is in the West, where you take a lump of flesh from your refrigerator, throw it in a pan, boil it, sprinkle it with salt, and then eat like an animal. And in Korea, he said they eat dogs. But human beings should eat grains, fruits, vegetables, and milk, and the cow especially should not be killed. While Brahmananda cut the apples for the chutney and put them in a pot for steaming, and Kirtananda stirred the sweet rice, Swamiji prepared masala, the basic mixture of spices, which he would soon add to the steaming apples. The familiar smell of red pepper and cumin seeds entered the nostrils sharply as the masala crackled and smoked in the hot ghee in the tiny frying pan. With three separate operations going at once, sweet rice, steaming apples, and masala, Prabhupada cautioned Kirtananda to stir the sweet rice steadily and scrape the bottom of the pot. And he took the spoon for a moment from Kirtananda's hand and demonstrated how to stir it properly. Sweet chutney, sweet rice chutney, and certain other dishes could be made in advance of the feast, he explained, but many things would have to be done the next morning. Prabhupada rose early, despite having kept late hours the night before, and after the morning class, he was back in the kitchen. Now, half a dozen disciples sat in his front room making dough for puris and samosas. He had shown them how to make the dough, and Umapati had kneaded for a while by pounding the soft dough with his fists. But Brahmananda was better at it, socking the weight of his wrestler's body onto the large lump of dough. As Swamiji entered the room to examine the quality of the puris, his disciples looked up at him respectfully. They were always serious when he was present. He picked up a puri and examined it. It is not to the standard, he said, but it will have to do. Then, amid crumpled rejects and oddly shaped pieces of dough, he squatted down beside his helper, who were trying as best as they could, though making a mess. He took a small ball of dough, pressed it flat with his fingers, and then deftly rolled it out until it curled around the wooden pin and then fell off, a perfectly round puri. He held it up, displaying a translucent, thin, but not too thin, patty of dough. Make them like this, he said. But hurry! On discovering that the dough was too stiff, Swamiji added a little ghee and then a little milk and kneaded the dough to a softer texture. Everything should be just right, he said, and his disciples took to their menial tasks with concentrated earnestness. Who among them had ever heard of these things before? Puris and samosas. It was all new, and the challenge something very important. It was a part of devotional service. Swamiji did much of the cooking as he simultaneously supervised his helpers. He was always near, walking barefoot back to the kitchen, then to the front room, then to his own room in the rear, and even when he went to his back room, his disciples could see him through the window in the wall. Swamiji saw each of the nearly 1 dozen dishes through its final stages, and his disciples carried them into the front room in pots, one by one, and placed them before the picture of Lord Chaitanya. There was halwa, dal, two sabjis, fancy rice, puris, samosas, sweet rice, apple chutney, and gulab jamuns or sweet balls, ISKCON bullets. Prabhupada had personally spent much time slowly deep frying the sweet balls in a low heat until they had turned golden brown and full. Then, one by one, he had lifted them out of the ghee with a slotted spoon and put them to soak in sugar syrup. He recognized that these golden, ghee fried milk balls soaked with sugar water were his disciples' favorite prasadam treat. He called them ISKCON bullets because they were weapons in the war against Maya. He even allowed that a jar of ISKCON bullets floating in their syrup be always on hand in the front room where his disciples could take them without asking permission and without observing any regulated hours. They could take as many as they liked. Keetananda brought in the samosa filling, which he had prepared from spinach and green peas, cooked to a paste, and which the Swami had heavily spiced. Stuffing the samosas was an art, and Swamiji showed them how to do it. He took a semicircle of dough, shaped it into a cone, stuffed it with a spoonful of filling, and then folded the top over and sealed it. A samosa ready for the hot ghee. Achyutananda carried the imperfectly shaped puris into the kitchen, where he and Kirtananda deep fried them two at a time. If the temperature of the ghee, the consistency of the dough, and the size, shape, and thickness of the puris were all just right, the puris would cook in only a few seconds, rising to the surface of the ghee, where they would inflate like little balloons. The cooks then stood them on the edge in a cardboard box to drain off the excess ghee. As they completed the last preparations for the feast, Swamiji's disciples washed the stiff dough from their hands and went down to the storefront where they sat out the straw mats and awaited the guests and the feast. Upstairs, Swamiji and a couple of his cooks offered all the preparations to Lord Chaitanya, reciting the Parampara prayer. The first few love feasts were not very well attended, but the devotees were so enthusiastic about the feast prasadam that they showed no disappointment over the scarcity of guests. They were prepared to eat everything. Satsvarupa. There was something called Brahmana spaghetti, which was rice flour noodles cooked in ghee and soaked in sugar water. And there was halwa, push pushpanna rice with fried cheese balls, samosas, split mung beans fried into crunchy pellets and mixed with salt and spices, puris, gulab jamuns, and everything was succulent. That was the word Hayagriv used. Yes, he would say, expressing it waggishly. Everything was very succulent. Eating the feast was an intense experience. We were supposed to be subduing our senses all week, following strict regulations, controlling the tongue, and the feast was a kind of a reward. Swamiji and Krishna were giving us a taste of full spiritual ecstasy, even though we were still beginners and still in the material world. Before taking my plateful, I would pray, please let me remain in Krishna consciousness because it is so nice and I am so fallen. Let me serve Swamiji and let me now enjoy this feast in transcendental bliss. And I would begin eating, going from one taste sensation to another. The good rice, the favorite vegetable, the bread, and saving the gulab jamun for last, thinking I can have seconds, and if I like, thirds. We would keep our eyes on the big pots, confident that there was as much as we wanted. It was a time of rededication. We all enjoyed with completely open relish and sense gratification. Eating was very important. Gradually, attendance picked up, the feasts were free, and they were reputed to be delicious. Mostly local hippies came, but occasionally a higher class of experimenting New Yorkers or even the parents of one of the devotees would come. When the small temple was filled, guests would sit in the courtyard. They would take their prasadam laden paper plates and their wooden spoons into the backyard garden and sit beneath the fire escape or at the picnic table or anywhere. And after eating, they would go back into the storefront for more. Devotees were stationed behind the pots of prasadam, and the guests would come by for seconds. The other tenants were not very happy about seeing the courtyard full of festive guests, and the devotees tried to pacify them by bringing them plates of prasadam. Although Swamiji would not go down to the temple, he would take a plate in his room and hear with pleasure about the success of his new program. One time, the devotees were eating so ravenously that they threatened to eat everything available before the guests had all been served, and Kirtananda had to admonish them for their selfish attitude. Gradually, they were understanding that the Sunday feast was not just for their fun and pleasure, but to bring people to Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada had begun Back to Godhead magazine in India. Although he had been writing articles since the 1930s, it was 1944 in Calcutta that he had single handedly begun the magazine in response to his spiritual master's request that he preach Krishna consciousness in English. It had been with great difficulty that through his pharmaceutical business he had managed to gather the 400 rupees a month for printing, and he had single handedly written, edited, published, financed, and distributed each issue. In those early years, Back to Godhead had been Prabhupada's major literary work and preaching mission. He had envisioned widespread distribution of the magazine, and he had thought of plans for spreading the message of Lord Chaitanya all over the world. He had drawn up a list of major countries and the number of copies of Back to Godhead he wanted to send to each. He sought donations to finance his project, but help was scarce. Then in 1959, he had turned his energies toward writing and publishing the Srimad Bhagavatam. But now he wanted to revive Back to Godhead, and this time it would not be done single handedly. This time he would give the responsibility to his disciples. Greg Scharf, now Gargamuni since his recent initiation, found a press. A country club in Queens was trying to sell its small A.B. Dick press. Prabhupada was interested and he rode out to Queens in a borrowed van with Gargamuni and Kirtananda to see the machine. It was old but in good condition. The manager of the country club wanted $250 for it. Prabhupada looked over the machine carefully and talked with the manager, telling him of his spiritual mission. The manager mentioned a second press he had on hand and explained that neither machine was actually of any use to him. So Prabhupada said he would pay $250 for both the machines. The country club did not really need them. And besides, the manager should help out since Prabhupada had an important spiritual message to print for the benefit of all humanity. The man agreed. Prabhupada had Gargamuni and Kirtananda load both machines into the van, and ISKCON had its printing press. Srila Prabhupada gave over the editorship of Back to God magazine to Hayagriva and Raya Rama. For so many years, he had taken Back to Godhead as his personal service to his spiritual master. But now he would let young men like Hayagriva, the college English teacher, and Raya Rama, the professional writer, take up Back to Godhead magazine as their service to their spiritual master. In a short time, Hayagriva and Raya Rama had compiled the first issue and were ready to print. It was an off night, no public kirtan and lecture, and Swamiji was up in his room working on his translation of Srimad Bhagavatam. Downstairs, the printing of the first issue had been going on for hours. Rai Rama had typed the stencils, and during the printing, he had stood nervously over the machine, examining the printing quality of each page, stroking his beard and murmuring, Now it was time to collate and staple each magazine. The stencils had lasted for 100 copies, and 100 copies of each of the 28 pages, and the front and back covers were now lined up along two of the unvarnished benches Raphael had made that summer. A few devotees collated and stapled the magazine in an assembly line, walking along the stacks of pages, taking one page under another until they reached the end of the bench, and gave the assembled stack of pages to Gargamuni, who stood brushing his long hair out of his eyes, stapling each magazine with the stapler and staples Ramananda had brought from his Board of Education office. Even Hayagriva, who usually didn't volunteer for menial duties, was there, walking down the line, collating. Okay, I think we'll pause here at 6:28. Yes. Anybody has any thoughts, reflections from today's reading? Anybody loved the ISKCON bullets to fight
Hare
against the
Krishna.
Maya? Yes.
I
Hare
think,
Krishna.
yes, ISKCON Billets is amazing. And I think today's reading about Prasadam was the
Mm.
perfect way to start our Nirjal Ekadashi by, absorbing our mind and our bellies. And I think we'll be satisfied for the whole day and be able to manage it. Such beautiful, description of the first love feast, and just amazing how Srila Prabhupada just cooked so many things. It's not just like three, four preparations, dozen preparations. It's just unbelievable how he would do it at his age and knew everything how to do it. No YouTubes at that time to look up at the recipes, so just unbelievable. Hare Krishna.
Mm.
And Anandani, I was reflecting on the same point, and I thought
Yeah,
Prabhupada's mother passed away when he was 14 years old, and he said he learned from
yeah,
his mother.
that's
So I was amazed.
oh wow, it's very
Yes.
Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada. I also loved with the line when I forgot the devotee's name, and he was saying the feast was so nice, and I am so fallen,
Mhm.
and I want to thank Srila Prabhupada, and I want to enjoy the feast to the fullest transcendental bliss. Some line was there out there.
Yes,
It was so
I think
beautiful.
that's Swarup Goswami Maharaj's comment. I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were saying they're following all austerities and regulations for the whole week, and then they were ready for the love feast. So maybe this is our day of austerity to show our love for Prabhupada with Nirjala. Like, of course, Prabhupada didn't really emphasize on doing Nirjala. We had to see our own bodies, and according to that, we had to do our fasting. But of course, we can fast at least like Ekadashis that we do, and if we fast on fruits and uh, just on fruits and maybe vegetables or salad, whatever, and then we can take prasadam if that is what our bodies are able to manage. But if we are able to do nirjal, and that is the best. Of course, we get the whole credit of all the Ekadashis for the year if we fast Nirjal on this one day. That is why it's called the Bhima Pandav Nirjal Ekadashi, because Bhima was not able to fast on all the Ekadashis of the year. So this was kind of a concession for him. But I mean, sometimes when we perform Ekadashis also, sometimes there may be some mistakes or some offenses we may create. So it's always good to still do the Nirjal Ekadashi. So this is kind of our opportunity to uh, follow austerity today, and then maybe tomorrow we can have the love feast at the center. Yeah, like you said, kids learn so fast, right? So he was so young and he learned so much from his mother. So that is why it is important that we teach our young kids at our center when we do Bal Gopal classes, Dhruva classes. That is the age, right? So all the learnings that goes in right now into their minds is something that they will carry for their life. So that is also very nice. Yes, thank you, both the wonderful teachers of the kids' classes. Hare Krishna for your services. All right, any other thoughts, reflections? Anything else that anybody liked or loved or learned? I see Adi Guru Prabhu here today. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you for your wonderful reading that you're continuing. I hope. And please play for me that I can join, Prabhu, more regularly.
Adi Prabhu will give some spiritual bank balance back to us. Is accumulating every day, though he's not joining.
No, Prabhu. I am the most fallen of the lot. I am. Yes, Prabhu. Please bless so that I can join.
Now, Prabhu, you are so engaged in services, right? So that's really good. Thank you.
Good.
Hare Krishna.
That is the quality of humility that devotees have. That shows who's the pure devotee, one who has the quality of humility. So, thank you, both of you. All right. Nothing else, then we will pause here for today. And I wish everybody has a wonderful, wonderful Bhima Pandava Nirjala Ekadasi today. And of course, we have a wonderful program this evening at Alok Prabhu and Sangeeta Mataji's place with His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. So what wonderful way to celebrate Ekadashi than to chant some extra rounds and hear Harikatha from Vaishnavas who are traveling all over the world, glorifying the Lord's pastimes. So Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, of course, is a very, very exalted devotee. And he has been here, he's been gracing us for the last few years. So it's very nice that he's given us extra time this year and on the weekend. Usually he used to come on weekdays. So we should take this opportunity to take his association today on this wonderful day of Ekadashi. So we'll see you all this evening. We'll conclude with Darshan Pranam prayers. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनंत कोटि वैष्णवृंद की जय जगत गुरु शिला प्रभुपाद की जय शिला प्रभुपाद लीलामृत की जय नीताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल हरे
Thank
कृष्णा
you, Prabhuji. Have a great day. Hare
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 Krishna.
Krishna. Happy Nirjala Ekadasi.